Scott Soshnick.
And I'm Eben Novy-Williams, and this is the Athlete, Investor, Founder, Author Sports Business Podcast, the Sporticast.
Paul, I gave him the
Scott
open.
looks so disgusted.
Scott's always disgusted.
There's a fan of the podcast.
Disgusted.
No. I'm sometimes bemused. I'm sometimes miffed. You have to push me and be bad to be disgusted, because we just sort of discussed like the perfect. This is Rabil part. We've done this. I gave you a path. A brim
I
road
chose a
path,
different path, my
and
friend.
when you hit the fork in the road, take it.
I prefer that path.
No, you don't.
Look, I thought I was ousted because the older Rabil was at your event in LA hosting a great panel.
Hell of a job by Mike Rabil. Hell of a job by Mike Rabil. Yeah.
So my days are numbered here. It was a good run we had.
You had a very
8
good
years
run
together.
We had a very good run,
us.
but Wally Pip-esque, like Mike will now be subbing in.
Off, isn't it?
This is the Goodbye podcast.
We were going to save that for the end, but since you get there, I mean, if for people who always listen, sometimes we have technical difficulties. I mean, sometimes we have technical difficulties. This is not bravado, Paul. The three of us had a hell of a good podcast, 80% recorded. What, a few months ago? A couple months ago?
Yeah, a couple months ago.
It was
beginning of Feb.
Yeah, really good podcast. We had made predictions. We were in on media. We were going deep.
We solved the sports media problem, in my recollection.
We basically
had fully solved the whole thing.
Yeah. Everyone stole our ideas.
Exactly.
Yeah, now what we predicted has come to fruition,
That's
so
right,
we have to come up with new stuff. Anyway, welcome back to the building in a functional studio.
And it's worked out for the best, because this is fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. Lighting is nice. We don't love the director's chairs. We'll admit we don't love the director's chairs.
I actually like and think you should keep, because it is very different than what you see typically in a podcast studio. Three people sitting around, and then you get a good time, like kind of adjusting the mic when you lean back, pull it. But
you got it. Well, I established that early
panel, which is a refresh.
But I like, as Eben knows, I like to have at least something to write on, and my phone, because he'll say something silly and I write down something. And now I'm going to have to.
Yeah, my coffee's over there.
You can just go grab it anytime you want. So
Evan doesn't have a footstool.
I'm swimming
got great
in this
shoes.
chair.
He's going to struggle.
Swimming.
Yeah.
So what you throw out the first topic. This is what we do all the time. What do you want to start with, Mr. Rabil, since you're a guest in our house?
Well, we should pick up where we left off, talking about media.
All right.
I mean, it's really everything, right?
It's the number one revenue source for sports. Did you notice I'm wearing my ESPN Plus
I appreciate
hoodie?
that very much.
They have a role in the Premier Lacrosse League, don't
very
they?
happy with that.
Yeah.
John Lasker, Jimmy Pitaro, Dan Margulis, everyone's very appreciative.
So
on behalf of ESPN, thank you for wearing that.
See, I do it for you. Well, it's not like anybody sent me any PLL swag. I have my, National Women's
We don't
Soccer.
have Spulu swag yet, or Raptor, or what's the name going to be? We could start with the guessing game.
Let's do the guessing game. By the way, I'm on record. Let's keep it at Spulu. Jacob Feldman, Bloomberg's Jacob Feldman, the first.
Bloomberg's.
Did I say Bloomberg?
You said Bloomberg.
I always do that. Sportico's Jacob Feldman, the first to tournament. I've done that a million times.
Paul, he would be jumping down.
No, because I've done it a million times. I kill myself.
Like me.
And at least I didn't do it at the top of the podcast, but this is what I do. Well, let's talk about media. Let's like they'll give any incompetent fool who can't remember where he works, a podcast these days. I mean, which league? Who do we want to talk about? I mean,
we should probably talk about the NBA, because that's yet to have been confirmed.
It is materializing.
And Adam's going to achieve more than what he let his board of governors realize that was possible. And that's just because of the momentum. He's been able to get +1 bidding. He's been able to capitalize on timing right now with NBA playoffs. He's a wonderful commissioner. And the value of live sports continues to go up in the ecosystem, primarily because advertisers want to be a part of appointment watching programming. And ever since the advent of streaming, even DVR, they've gotten weeded out of the other huge part of viewing, which is entertainment. So that is, to me, one of the primary reasons why live sports, when it comes to media rights, continue to get more valuable, aren't hitting a ceiling, because two biggest revenue streams for these networks, distributors, content creators, affiliate fees, which are going down, but still a big business. 60 million plus.
I think I asked this on the last time, the one we didn't use. What was the floor for ESPN? I thought I said 50. You said 60. Is that where we?
No. I feel that, this is only from reading and just trying to take wild guesses around ESPN's book. I think those guys have it all the fun.
Yep.
But the ramp up to critical mass went from like 4 to 11 to 40. I think about critical mass quite a bit in technology, in other startups. And I think that there is going to be a level set probably around there.
Which is still a pretty good business. Now you have to figure out, how do I monetize the new ways of doing things?
The other thing is that we probably have, I think I read a report a year ago or so, Ted Sarandos was commenting on smart TVs and households around the country. I think you're at like 70%. And call it another 4 or 5 Christmases, you'll get to 100, which I think makes the streaming experience. I mean, it's far better now for us than it was 4 years ago. I have the streamers on my remote, and so it was difficult when you have 3, 4, walls to get through.
What's in the Rabil living room? What's on the wall?
I've got everything. Unfortunately, I spent too much.
Okay, yeah, you could. Eben, what's
my
in the
favorite show
Novy-Williams
right now is Couples Therapy on Paramount Plus. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm doing with Paramount Plus outside of Champions League.
So this will not surprise you to know that in the Soshnick household, I will not upgrade to smart TV until my current TV dies.
I'm like ride or die cable.
I am ride or
die cable.
Non-smart
TV. Believe it or not, even
does
in
it still work?
Absolutely works fine. I mean, the minute it doesn't work, it's just not smart. Nor am I. So that's fine. I'm also, by the way, and my wife has pushed into some of the sub services. But I want to see Shogun, but I can do it on FX. On FX, I am a loyal cable bundle guy.
Yeah.
I have always, and Eben will back me on this, for years.
Yeah.
I have been proselytizing, right? Did I say it right? About the value of the cable bundle. I mean, if I want to go to a movie, 2 people to a movie, what am I paying? Ticket, popcorn, whatever, soda. What am I paying? $50, $60 just for that movie? I got a whole month of all these channels of things that I may not think I want, but it's nice to have the opportunity to be introduced to new things like the spring baking championships.
Look, this is why, going back to Spulu, we had called it the best counterpunch thus far to big tech, which are the disruptors, right? They have unlimited inventory and ridiculous balance sheets. So since we spoke, Netflix picked up the WWE deal, which I think was the canary in the coal mine for 5 years from now. Basically, every discipline is going to be available on Netflix in some way, shape, or form, small property to, second or third tier packages. But what made Spulu so interesting for me is that they have every corner now covered, from price point to, if you want to serve Scott Soshnick, they have their deal with the MVPDs. You can be a Comcast or Warner provider. They have Hulu as a virtual MVPD. They're going to have Spulu, which is their JV with Fox and Warner, which is going to be another price point. They have Flagship that they're rolling out, which is going to be another price point. They're going to keep Plus. So people are going, oh, why wouldn't they congeal all of these? It's because people have different appetites for their spending to consume. So I thought it was brilliant, right? You don't want to have one price point when you're spread across all of the categories. And, there's still government, or there's contractual oversight around the launch of ESPN Flagship, call it, and the protection of their MVPD deals, where it has to be a price above sort of the additive subscription fee or affiliate fees they're getting across their network.
How do you think about the value prop of those tiers? Let's say, put your PLL hat on for a second. Yeah. You're a partner with ESPN. As you think about the availability to have games on some of these, all 4 of them, or on some but not others, right now, as we sit here in May 2024, how do you think of which one is the most valuable to you? Is it still cable, or is it maybe something else?
Well, it's unique because when we think about broadcast cable, to score a strong rating, you want to have a great lead in or lead out. That's always existed. Seinfeld came on the heels of Cheer. Right. And that was monolithic consumption. I think Cheer finale had 84 million people watch. When the XFL launched before streaming, their first game had 50 million viewers. We just all used to watch things. I mourn the loss of those times. But having a great lead in, where as an entertainment network executive or sports executive would know, is how you grow a property. That's how ESPN grew UFC and, placement across other promotional programming. On streaming, it's tile placement. That's huge. Our user interface, when we log on into Netflix or Amazon or ESPN Plus, They're getting smarter. They can predict what we want to be served. And then some of them are trying to learn from the TikTok algorithm, which is what I think ESPN flagships technology, a lot of people aren't talking about, is going to be primo when they roll it out. Is they are going to learn from what you're watching, serve you that, and then learn about what you don't know you want to watch yet, serve you that as well.
This was a big deal for Apple and MLS deal, was trying to figure out when a random person opens Apple TV, where and how difficult is it for them to find the tiles that has Messi's face plastered on it in the pink jersey. And that was a big priority for MLS, I know, in their talks, was to make sure that, at least at the onset, that Messi's face and MLS's logo was there, regardless of whether you were watching games consistently or not.
And I think that's still where Apple might struggle more than some of their competitors in the streaming space, is their UI UX. And perhaps that's because they're in the business of selling phones, and similar sort of worry of sports executives and getting over to Amazon is they're in the business of commerce. And it's nice to line up with someone who's in your business as a primary focal point. They used to say Apple is a $3 trillion market cap company, and they could shut down Apple TV Plus, and shareholder, it's not really
wouldn't notice.
I would love to see what Steve Jobs would do now in terms of what we're discussing here, like the tile, because he understood, one, the brick and mortar would be successful, brought it back and he also understood the value of just the design. The fact remains that an iPhone feels good in your hand.
No question. And I think Apple still is in the driver's seat for being the ultimate aggregator downstream. If we look at consolidation, because of our phone can also flex into a remote.
Yeah.
So not only do we watch from the phone, but if you push, you can also remote, get rid of that hardware.
Great moment in the Soshnick household where the focus group of one was trying to watch a show, and I flicked my phone onto the remote, and I kept changing the channel up one. Baffled, bewildered, confused, bamboozled, never had an idea that I was like, because he's got the remote in his hand.
Yeah.
He has no idea what's going on. And then I finally let him in.
This is only funny because he's younger than you.
Yeah, exactly. He should have been like, Dad,
if he was
stop
doing
it.
it to you, it would be sad.
What the hell's wrong with you? Like banging the remote around. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, by the way, we're just sitting here pontificating, but Apple's strategy continues to reveal itself as all or nothing in sports. Because we were just going like, why wouldn't they take an NBA package? It's unlikely that they are.
Yeah.
And it's because they're like, hey, when we want the NBA, we'll take all of the NBA. That's my view on it. And that's their move in soccer. And they don't want a second or third tier package.
Shouldn't that, I know you and I have talked about this before, shouldn't that scare you as a sports property? The idea that the people that you're negotiating against, it seems like in the next 10 years,
plotting your demise,
is going to go from cable networks who are in this with you, and their entire business is predicated on your success, just like in some ways your success is with them, is going to jump to now huge multi-billion-dollar market cap companies that, as you said, don't really care about sports, could do without it if they had to. To me, I worry if I was a NBA owner, for example, and I wrote something about this a few months ago. My worry is that in 5 years, when all I'm doing is negotiating with Apple and Netflix and Amazon, that the hammer comes down a little bit in terms of the imbalance of who needs who more, suddenly shifts dramatically, way more than exists right now with the TV networks. And that at some point, your rights are worth less because the companies who are the only people buying them need them way less than they used to in the past.
You could take that outlook. I could understand that. I get more excited about the evolution of media rights if, as a league, you have a great live experience that is servicing an emerging or growing or very substantially large fan base, because they're all playing different games. Amazon is commerce first, understand the value of live on app and the conversion to advertising. Advertising is a massive business. It's still a $65 billion business in the US, broadcast cable. Internationally, it's like $235 billion. And we're approaching a totality of an advertising market for the first time in 2025 at $1 trillion. So that's what gets these network executives, or call it tech executives, out of bed, and why they're looking at, i.e. Ted Sarandos Live Sports, and they're testing it along the way. But advertising can take their business to another level, and advertising has to go somewhere, but it goes where eyes are. And that's why Ari Emanuel has gone from servicing 80% of his business to entertainment to now 80% of his business in sports because he sees the future of live events. And then it's incumbent on us to broadcast and figure out where that goes.
Well, and what I want to buy, I mean, we normally see the same ad. If we're watching the Super Bowl, more or less, we normally see the same ad. The differentiation is coming now where the algorithm will know not only what you prefer, but what you're in the market for. Yep. What are you shopping for the past few days? You will get hard targeted. The value of each eyeball skyrockets. And if live sports is the only thing delivering the aggregation of eyeballs, well, there we go.
This was cool. I was watching Under the Bridge on Hulu. It's a new TV series. And before each episode, I'm being asked to choose one of 3 ads I want to watch.
I was literally about to say this exact thing. You probably aren't getting this because you are a cable broadcast
see, I'm
guy.
By behind, I'm being ahead. I'm avoiding it.
I've seen the pick which ad you want. Another one that I love as a consumer, just because I love trivia.
Give me a bit of the spread.
Trivia in them. So it's an ad, whatever it is. The advertisement's at the top, and then if I'm watching, let's just say I'm watching a Mets game, there's Mets trivia there. So I'm playing along, and the ads are there, and I'm also looking at the ads. That to me, the interactiveness of those, I think, and the personalization. I think you're right, also, Scott.
Well, to bring it all to life,
is the perfect combination.
And to bring it all to life in advertising, right? Because we had talked about affiliate fees, advertising is the second massive revenue stream. Is that sports have and will continue to have authentic, integrated space for ads. Soccer has, which was the fear in America, it's 90-minute running time. You have halftime, and then they figured out digital ad placement. Yeah. But every other sport in America has quarter breaks, timeouts, coaches' challenges. And so you not only have a space for advertisers, but the data indicates that the fans welcome good advertising. And that's a psychology of a sports fan. And, we've seen it every year. When I used to, I graduated from Hopkins and I would have a SBJ subscription. I would scroll through it. You would see.
Did he really just say that on our podcast?
Well, you guys.
Aren't you an SBJ award winner? Sorry. Aren't you an SBJ award winner? By the way, why don't we just go full on? Where can I subscribe to SBJ? Paul, give us an address.
This is what I like about Scott. He's competitive as me and Mike. But I did hesitate. I was like, am I going here? Well, I have to go.
It's hard to know when you're hesitating.
So, but it would have a chart that would show. That would poll fans on who the energy drink, the sports drink, the burger, the automobile, the hospitality partner is of the NFL, of the NBA. And there was a level of excitement and participation and identifying. And then for us, we know from third-party data that we've pulled that our fans are 70% more likely to try a product or be supportive of a brand when they're supporting us because there's a community around it. One being Ticketmaster. 80% of our fans favor Ticketmaster. It's music to Clay Luter's ears.
And what percent of your fans hate Ticketmaster fees?
Well, they're okay with it because they understand it because we talk about it. And that's why we have a creative services team. That's why we have a production house internally. We were having this discussion with one of our largest partners now in Whirlpool, and they're the governor of that category, and they have to advertise differently than the insurgent. We get to do all these disruptive ads and things. And so we're working on a big campaign with them, with their advertising agency and their creative team and ours that you'll see across ESPN networks this season. But it's sort of balancing that, insurgents versus governor and trust. You don't really want to get too ticky-tacky when you're buying, the best washer and dryer. You want that thing to last.
I had, when you buy one of the new construction places here in New York City where we are, I'm not even going to mention the high end. I don't want to get them angry at me, but it's like one of those high end. You have the high end appliances. Worst thing. I mean, it broke down all the time.
Yeah,
hated it. Give me my Whirlpool, and Maytag. Remember, are you too young to know the Maytag repairman? All right. I don't know. I can't tell. Novy-Williams. Sometimes you're living a Donald Duck.
Here's the other, maybe the last thing I want to talk about with media rights. If you guys want your opinion, so the rumors are out there. NBC put a rather large bid on the second tier package.
I can confirm that's true.
For the NBA.
Yes.
It's at $2.5 billion.
It's right around there. Yeah.
Right around there. And you start wondering, okay, is Zaslav and Warner going to match it because they have the right to match? You start doing the math in your head with their debt, with their revenues, and their
they'll lose money if they get it. They'll lose money if they don't.
They're in a tough spot. Yeah.
And what I don't think is being discussed, which is really a negotiation, and none of us can put our finger on the math unless we're in the room, is the NBA doesn't drive ratings like the NFL. But the NBA has done a masterclass job of cool attention, conversation that translates over to social. It's just like a lot of late night television shows are being converted to YouTube and are being cut that way. So
let me bring in hold that thought where Zaslav, because I say this about Saturday Night Live. I have not watched Saturday Night Live in I don't know how many, I'm going to forget years, decades, right? However, the Beavis and Butthead clip and the others, like that's where we're headed. You don't have to be live anymore. It's the week lead in, it's the week after. How many hundreds of millions of people saw that skit the week afterwards on social?
And as big tech has gotten better with integrated advertising opportunities, we can now, monetize. And I say we, Sportico, for the record, I have no shares. And I wish I did. But you guys can monetize multi-platform now. And when we first started recording, when you guys were at Bloomberg, there were no video cameras. It was just us presenting for audio. So what I was going to say about Zaslav is he has to figure out the appeal, because in the end, he has Major League Baseball playoffs. He has NCAA March Madness. He has some
golf, some hockey,
NASCAR, I think, as well.
Yeah.
He's got a good slate.
It's a nice portfolio, yeah.
But
it's not the NBA.
Charters, the Comcast of the world, they'd be like, well, you don't have the NBA.
That sub fee comes down considerably.
Fee comes down, but the fee coming down isn't really justified in ratings as it is about the cool factor. When you lose the NFL, there's no question your fee's getting cut.
Yeah.
The other thing is advertising. They've done a good job with their shoulder programming on TNT. And so where does that go? And, so you're looking at potentially a double shot there.
Yeah.
And that may be enough to convince your board to pay a little bit.
Eben's too young to remember NBC thinking they can get out of the business of the NFL and be okay.
I don't remember that, but I know enough to know that was a bad.
You know how hard they tried to get back in.
Yeah.
That we understand.
I was also going to say the because of the way all these businesses do more than one thing. Imagine a world where the NBC gets the NBA. Let's say Warner does not. Suddenly the sub fee for TNT goes down.
Yeah.
Right. That benefits Comcast, which is also part of NBC, right? Because it's less payment they have to make. So they're saving money on that. Yep. Money that they are, I'm sure, thinking about on the ledger as they think about how much they want to pay for the NBA. It's really interesting to me how, because these businesses do many things, including Comcast, right, which is cable and also the network. There's a world in which getting the NBA doesn't pay for itself, obviously, but you're saving on the TNT payment in a way that's going to help finance your bid for the NBA as well.
That's really smart, and that's the other
right.
piece. That's the counter. That's like Brian Roberts and Co.'s counterpunch, similar to tech, like we were just talking about Pitaro, right? And that they have the MVPD in Comcast.
Yep.
They also made a move when Pete Bavacqua was at the helm, now AD at Notre Dame, to shutter NBC Sports. Right. So that was an affiliate fee gone, but one pocket to the other through one of the MVPDs. And they have now data from tucking one of the NFL playoff games onto Peacock and retention of those new subs, where they're going, all right, this is an NBC Peacock play, backdoor Comcast. I think it's really cool to see all this unfold.
So what does all of this mean for a property like PLL?
Yeah.
Right. Which is not the NFL or the NBA, but is doing well and has, as you said, a niche following of people who love the sport and love the league.
Well, when we started building the PLL in 2018, there were 15 million fans, according to MRI Simmons. Now there are 46 million. We're widening the aperture, the awareness of lacrosse. More fans are watching. We do a good job with lead in and lead outs with our partners at ESPN. We do a good job with tile placement when we're on Plus. Our viewership last year was up 67% on linear and was up 60% on Plus. They've helped us with inventory. We have 8 ABC windows, but getting the right windows, right? Not all windows are created equal. We have another 8 on ESPN and ESPN2. We go about that in a constructive manner of negotiation, meaning there's a lot of properties that say, hey, we would just want more windows. Believe in us. Give us more exposure, where we come to the table with partners, right? Because whether you're the NBA or the NFL or the PLL and you cut a deal with a network, they want that deal to be profitable. And they do it through several ways. One of them is partnership. So all of a sudden we're bringing entitlement partners to the table. They're going to give us more inventory because we're selling out our inventory.
Yeah.
So we always say, like, show us a constructive counterpoint. We want to do this. Here's the math. And they've been fantastic partners.
The NWSL just did this also. They brought a bunch of their top tier league partners to the table in their media rights.
Yeah.
Talking about how much their commitment was going to continue, not just to the league, but to whatever company was partnering with them to broadcast.
Hello, Ion, right.
Totally.
Ally Bank, CarMax.
And you guys have been along the ride since we launched the PLL, and we're touring as a business model. And we didn't have assigned home cities to our original 6 teams. Now we have 8. This past year, we announced live on SportsCenter the 8 assignments to our home teams. So now they all have home cities, which has unlocked a big local marketing effort for us. Where I see a lot of opportunity from a business standpoint is, some would call it traditional marketing, television, print, and radio. That's where a lot of sports fans like Scott still go. I got,
transistor radio, baby.
Look, 2 of my closest buds were DeMatha grads. They run the Sports Junkies, which is Washington, D.C.'s and the greater metropolitan regions, I think, go-to sports radio channel. And winning those Commanders fans, Capitals fans over into the Maryland Whipsnakes is not only a great investment, but it's a way to lock in with, I think, the most sort of like high nutrient fan. And so we've been doing that quite a bit. And we're going to see it come to life. But our business is, I think, a tier 2 league. We were a tier 3. David O'Connor, who's on our board, runs Arctos, formerly a partner at CAA, said going from tier 3 to tier 2 is essentially securing a major media rights deal. So it's the hardest thing to do in our business. So we view ourselves as that, and tier 2 is a really exciting place to be because we're profitable even on an increase in our rights to our network partners. When you start becoming the NFL or NBA, you have those conversations that we started this podcast with, which is, how much do we have to have them, which they do, versus investing because we're going to make money on this.
Yeah, I know you keep an eye on everything going on in the world, and you mentioned Doc and Arctos, and NFL perhaps welcoming private equity or institutional capital soon. Joe Tsai also, sort of your lead investor there. Just your thoughts on the insertion of private capital into these sports leagues. Doesn't have to retain valuation on franchises. People trying to get out. They've been locked in because of these high franchise valuations. Just your thoughts on the effect of the insertion of private capital.
Well, I think it's a huge exclamation point on what we've all believed in for a long time, which is the enterprise value of sports as a category. Whether it's Moelis or Allen & Co. or BOA or Goldman, they all have launched sports practices as well, which is usually a sign too when bankers start getting involved at every level and they want to introduce their high net worth clients. And then you have the Adams and the Goodells, and we do this already with the PLL, welcoming in private equity. The downside is always like, okay, private equity is pretty ruthless, and they're going to look for a 3x.
What's the return and how fast do I get out?
And they might lean out the cost structure and such. So,
but you have people at your advantage, though, and not saying you're here. Your advantage here is that you've got people who love the game. They're committed. They are committed to the game and the growth of the game.
They love the game, and they came in when we were a tier 3 property, so they knew that it was a 10-year plus long-term investment. Right, the UFC sold after 28 years. Don Garber's been crushing this game for 30 years. This is a long-term play, and our difference though was that we were able to launch in a modern media climate where they were slogging away with just broadcast cable and having to pay exorbitant fees to gather attention. We have attention at our disposal every day, every minute with social, and that's why we've climbed the charts really fast. We wouldn't have been able to raise the capital that we did in 2007.
I also think there's just a misnomer or misassumption about what private equity in sports is relative to what private equity in other realms of business is, right? The way that Doc O'Connor and Arctos think about investing in the franchises they invest in.
More longer term than their other holdings.
Longer term, right? They're not putting a 5 or
And by the way, they're not passive in anything else they do.
They're not passive in anything else they do. They are passive here. We're going to see, I think, a lot of private credit as well, in addition to private equity, which is structured more like a loan than. I think there's a lot more nuance to like how these things are structured than people who know of private equity in other markets or other industries trying to apply that to sports.
Well, and what you're describing is control.
Yeah.
Right. So if you cap the investment on the tier 1 sports leagues, which is what the commissioners give oversight to, then you have private equity as really strategic and sophisticated capital. Once you give up control, as a majority investment, 51% or more, then you roll out what you've been alluding to.
Yeah.
I laugh. You and I usually keep track of how long we're going. I thought like our producer Cora Veltman was here at the start. She's walked away.
She walked out during the opening
was sort of
segment.
counting on her to come back in a normal time frame, but that door is still closed, and I have no idea. I mean, we could literally do this all day. Yeah. Do you doubt that we could do this all day?
I think we could do a lot more all day. Maybe is a stretch. You have a book coming out or just came out.
Oh, thank you.
Right?
Yeah,
I want to hear about how that's going and the process.
Yeah, well,
what that was like.
I think one of the reasons why we have been friends beyond the shows and things is we all share intellectual curiosity. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make me an intellect, but I'm really curious.
Nor would we have termed you one.
I didn't get that intro. But whether
that was
it's
the fifth word,
we saved that for Michael Rabil.
Okay, enough out of you. So whether it was the business of sport or my previous career just as an athlete, I just study others.
Yeah.
I think the best way, as Warren Buffett would often allude to predict the future, is to understand the past. And so I am a ferocious consumer of Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Serena Williams, Michael Phelps, and I've been lucky to meet a lot of them over my time. And when I was presented with the idea by actually a PLL investor and my favorite author, Ryan Holiday, when I had retired, he said, "Why don't you write a book?" I was like, "Well, no one's going to want to read my book." And he was like, "That's why you should write it. Because if you said the other, I was going to hang up the phone." And he was like, "But let's also do something different." So we talked about it creatively. Anyway, he's an inspiration to me. Young Pueblo is a personal growth writer, goes by Diego Perez, or his name is Diego Perez. Stephen Pressfield, Marcus Aurelius, Rick Rubin, they all write this short chapter style content. So the book is phased out from amateur to professional beyond the game, and it's lessons from the greatest athletes, entrepreneurs, and entertainers of all time.
Now we're going to come out to your Fairfield event, and I'm going to bring the focus group of one.
Okay.
Because, we keep it real. You gave me a copy, and I said, you should read this. No. Yeah. It came from Dad. Doesn't want to hear anything that I have to say.
Oh, interesting.
But he, like you, is intellectually curious. He's also a moron, but he's intellectually curious. So when he's around elite athletes, and he's been spoiled, of course, he gets to tag along with me. Like he has had conversations with the best at his discipline, whether it be Carey Price or Muddy Brodeur. Like he sits Braden Holtby.
Yeah.
I watch him in conversation with these people, and he is really pushing to figure out, okay, what's your secret sauce? What do you focus on? How do I unlock that a little bit out of you that helps me? And I'm fascinated by it. And I know he would have the same conversation.
So here's what you do to Jackson. You point him to a chapter called Insane About Your Craft. It's about Wayne Gretzky and his practice habits. And what he would say today is not practice. He views it as a love for the game. And if you're being told as a kid to go out and practice so you can improve, that's a sign to a GM or a future coach, sort of like they may improve, but there's a cap here, versus kids just out there because they love it. I also reference Marty Brodeur as one of the all-time great goalies who's also given up he's top 10 have given up most goals, which is not uncommon from the greats. Bill Belichick, 8-time Super Bowl, second losingest coach in NFL history. Peyton Manning still has the record for most interceptions thrown as a rookie with 28. Cy Young blew more saves than most, award named after him. Michael Jordan missed 9,000 shots. Kobe Bryant didn't score a point in his first season playing basketball. The greats actually lose a lot. They build up a ton of resilience, and that's how they win. That, to me, is an unlock for a lot of young kids.
Let's get out of here on this. Give me your thoughts on the professionalization of youth sports. I mean, we're seeing, whether it's Blitz or whether plenty are getting involved in the youth sports space. I see it from focus group of one playing at an elite level. I hate it. This year round, this grind, this scouts, this private, the private lessons, the private everything over and over again. And Wayne told me face to face, he was like, when hockey season ended, I'd put my skates away and I didn't pick them up again until like August.
Yeah.
Because it really hurt me.
Yeah.
So, but
Michael Jordan used to say, hey, the reason why kids today aren't as competitive as kids yesterday is that when I played basketball, we had 12 games. That was it. So the games meant more. Now you play 4 games on a weekend at a tournament. It happens every other. So if you have more volume, it matters less. That's one theory. We study youth sports because it's a big part of our business. It's a big part of all pro sports leagues, whether they care to admit it or not. You have, as a pro league, a top-down approach from awareness to excitement to entertainment. And then you also want to take a bottom-up approach. So lacrosse had been, over the last 15 years, one of the fastest growing sports in the U.S. We've gone from, when I first picked up a stick, with 18 countries playing, and now there's 91 countries. So our youth strategy, and we announced it, called PLL Play, is an attempt to revitalize rec, to your point.
Which, you, by the way, your social did a great job. I saw you in New York recently. You bought the troops and you were out, playing the street game.
We had a street lacrosse event this weekend with all of the programs of the 5 boroughs here in New York. It's really a surrounding approach, because youth sports requires traditionally strong public funding. It's the difference between lacrosse, hockey, golf, and American football. All are expensive sports to play. They all require expensive equipment.
Tell me about it.
And from Teddy Roosevelt and other presidents who adored football to local governors and municipalities that funded our equipment at the rec level, that was the equalizer for American football. Lacrosse, hockey, golf hadn't figured out public funding, so everything had to be funded privately, either through your parents or really strong strategies of your manufacturers.
Yep.
So we have a dual approach. Blitz is an investor. They've done a great job with Unrivaled. And obviously he's got a really, I think, robust set of experiences on the public relations side. But growing youth sports, not only from a participation standpoint, but it actually ladders up, if you do a good job, to ticket sales, because they attend games, because they want to watch the pros.
That's your built-in fan base for sure. Your most fervent fans.
Yep. Yep.
I was going to say, I find the youth sports business to be so interesting, and also such a challenge for a lot of the things that you're saying, that the profit motive for youth sports feels like it has to be different, right? Because of the fact that sports are incredibly expensive and the barriers to entry in a lot of sports is so high, that the way you structure your business, if it's a professional lacrosse league, I imagine just has to be different than the way you structure your youth lacrosse outreach, because you want a little bit of a democratization, I imagine, of the sport in 100%. A way that, like, a business profit motive doesn't always allow.
And I'm going to call back to our first subject of media rights and Amazon. So where the league can benefit is our core business is not youth sports.
Yeah.
We don't actually have to build a profitable business, which allows us to do the right thing for young lacrosse players all over the world. If it break evens, fantastic, because as a league, more participants leads to a 20% year-over-year increase in ticket sales, in merchandise, in viewership. We had 1.3 billion impressions across the PLL account last year. We're projecting 2 billion this year, which again puts you in that tier 2 category of when major P&G brands or Unilever brands want to invest over a 30-day period like they do with March Madness. They want to secure 400 million impressions. We can now give them that. So
as a pitch to Group M right there. Come spend with us. That's what I heard.
There you go. This is youth sports through the lens of a sports league operator can help govern back to a fair play environment.
How have you not had a social component of just like having a catch with Caitlin Clark yet? Come on.
Yeah, we got to set that up.
I'm like, how have you
not
have a
team in
Clark
Indiana? Question to everybody that we have on the show.
No, that's not true.
So
but
Izzy Skane,
she's a driver.
So Izzy Skane, one of the things we did last year is we launched our first All-Star game. At least it was played on ESPN Plus, and it was at our championship series with the best women in the world. And we're going to build that further in next year's championship series. The best player in the country right now at Northwestern is a woman named Izzy Skane, and she's actually close with Caitlin Clark, and she just set the point record last weekend.
Oh, collab coming! I love it. Okay,
I love that collab. And we have more to come there, but really excited about the future of professional lacrosse, both on the men's and women's.
Isn't it nice to be ahead on the women's sports? And we've been covering women's sports at Syracuse. My God, at Sportico.
Syracuse.
God
SBJ.
almighty. Well, I wanted to
High
ask you also about the quarterfinals. Like, Syracuse is like a real lacrosse team again, and you've got the Blue Bloods. We've got some real names.
So
and
good.
You can't say Blue Bloods without Princeton in there. Just
the
one.
They don't have lightweight.
That was 90s.
The one Blue Blood that's not in there.
And by the way, can you recall the head coach of Princeton in the 90s that won?
Tierney?
Pure Tierney.
And
yeah.
You know who Bill Tierney Tierney's coaching for this season?
Denver still?
Philadelphia Water Dogs.
Nice.
Just kidding.
Nice.
We hired him.
Very nice.
And now we need Eben Novy-Williams to watch a PLL game.
I was on
Can we
campus.
at least get that out of this interview?
I was on campus when Bill left Princeton for Denver, and it was like people just couldn't comprehend. How he would leave such a big and rich program to go to a program that at that point, you know better than me, I don't think like really was a thing, right? Denver.
No, that was not a thing. But they're among the quarterfinal now.
They are
yeah,
very much a thing.
So he
Sprawl
brings
West,
lacrosse into Denver. The populace grows. They win a national championship, which prior the furthest team west of Denver
feels like hockey, by the way.
The University of North Carolina.
Mm.
We're able to get Bill Tierney to come to the pro ranks because he wants to accomplish everything this sport. The guy's already done that. The Hall of Fame field is named after him at USA Lacrosse. Coming micro into this conversation was the stuff that I really love digging into, as we've talked a lot of macro environment, is where sport can be really fun is the storylines. Caitlin Clark talking about Izzy Skane. When Bill Tierney left Princeton, a coach who took his role is the head coach of the Utah Archers. And Bill Tierney goes to Denver, comes back. Now he's taking the Philadelphia Water Dogs. Last year's championship was Philadelphia Water Dogs and Utah Archers. And those two are squaring off on ABC to start our season, which last year we set a record and had 782,000 people tune in. I want to get it to 1 million. Burke thinks I'm crazy. Peak viewers.
Whoa. Then
the
let me
micro story is Chris Bates, Bill Tierney, a little rematch, a little grudge match as well.
So what's your lead-in?
Our lead-in is women's college softball, which is a big one.
In Oklahoma, by the way, so not number 1 seed. I saw that recently.
So women's college softball.
Throwing my nuggets where I know them.
Women's college softball tournament crushes.
Yeah,
very similar to women's volleyball. Very similar now to women's basketball and women's lacrosse. So it's a live lead-in,
right,
as well, right? And there's a lot of non-live on ESPN.
Do you see the conversation that can stem from me saying the wrong word? Maybe it's I'm planning that. Maybe there's some genius at work there. I say Syracuse instead of Sportico. Yeah. Maybe there's some genius there.
Yeah. Too much going on.
I don't think so.
Like Zach
but maybe. But the point I was making is you see so many people jumping on bandwagon now.
Yeah.
And whether it's viewer, fan, advertiser, which drives me crazy. We've been doing it since day one. That was a priority of ours when we started Sportico. I know it was a priority of yours with the PLL. Yeah, okay, everybody, come and join us. Like where you been? Yeah, where you been?
Mike Rabil would be proud.
I keep having to justify, like, wait a minute, why should you be doing business with us when it comes to women's sports? As if there's a presumptive guilt that we are just jumping on a bandwagon. No. No. We've been there. Thank you very much. Where the hell have you been?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Paul, this was fun. I'm glad the technology worked for us this time. We don't
know. We have no idea.
By the way,
we don't know if it worked. By the way, when he closes the show, we like to just so you and I can converse. Let's just cross him here. Let's see if he can do this.
He is Paul Rabil. He's the co-founder of the PLL.
What kind of sweatpants are
those?
Those are like your athleisure wear thing. What are they?
Twitter at Paul Rabil. He is Scott Soshnick. You can find him on Twitter at Soshnick.
Really?
I am Eben Novy-Williams. You can find me on Twitter at Novy_Williams. The show is produced by Aaron Greenewald. Thank you very much to Aaron. She does a great job.
He's on autopilot.
Sportico's digital media editor, Cora Veltman, who I'm looking at right now. Thank you, Cora.
She would like you to know that you can follow the show at Sporticast.
You can be talking about a little about some tennis. Oh, great. Beckham, I was on the phone the other day in the LA office. Beckham walked right past.